My fiancée said real men buy 4-carat rings after her coworkers saw my proposal video. I thought I'd planned the perfect proposal, but apparently I was wrong about what perfection meant to her. I'd been with Victoria for 2 years, and as a pediatric nurse at Denver Children's Hospital, I'd saved every extra dollar for months to buy her a beautiful 1.5-carat engagement ring. The proposal itself was everything I'd dreamed of: sunset at Red Rocks Amphitheater, her favorite place in Colorado, with the mountains glowing behind us as I got down on one knee. I'd even set up my phone to record the moment so we could share it with our families back home. Victoria's reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Tears streaming down her face, hands shaking as she said yes over and over again, throwing her arms around me while the ring caught the last rays of sunlight. "Nathan, it's perfect," she whispered against my neck. "I love you so much. I can't believe this is really happening." We stayed there for another hour, her admiring the ring from every angle while I held her close, both of us giddy with excitement about our future together. The drive home was magical. Victoria called her parents, then mine, showing off the ring to her phone's camera while I drove, both of us laughing and planning. She immediately posted the proposal video to Instagram with the caption, "He asked and I said yes. Luckiest girl in the world," followed by about 20 heart emojis. The comments started pouring in within minutes, friends and family celebrating with us, coworkers from the hospital congratulating me, her real estate colleagues posting fire emojis and congratulations. I went to bed that night feeling like the luckiest guy alive, thinking about how Victoria's face had lit up when she saw the ring, how perfectly it fit her finger, how right everything felt. I should have known that feeling wouldn't last. The next evening, Victoria came home from her real estate office with a completely different energy than she'd had all week since the proposal. Instead of the glowing happiness I'd gotten used to seeing, she looked upset, almost angry, barely making eye contact as she dropped her purse and keys with more force than necessary. "How was work?" I asked, the same question I asked every day, but something about her posture told me I wasn't going to like the answer. She turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before, not quite angry, but disappointed in a way that made my stomach drop. "Marissa and Jade saw our proposal video," she said, referring to her 2 most competitive coworkers, women who treated the office like their personal stage for showing off designer bags and expensive jewelry. "They had some interesting things to say about the ring." The way she said "interesting" made it clear their comments hadn't been complimentary. I felt something cold settle in my chest as Victoria continued, her voice getting stronger, more certain with each word. "They said that real men buy 4-carat rings when they're serious about forever. That anything smaller just looks cheap next to what successful guys give their women." I stared at her, waiting for the part where she'd tell me she defended the ring, defended me, told them that the size didn't matter because she loved me. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at me with something that felt like disappointment. "Nathan, I'm embarrassed to wear this at work. It looks so tiny next to what they have, and they keep making these comments about how their boyfriends really know how to provide. You make good money as a nurse, you should be able to afford something appropriate for the woman you want to marry." I was stunned by Victoria's sudden transformation, but some desperate part of me wanted to fix this, to get back to the happiness we'd had just 24 hours earlier, so I heard myself saying, "Okay, let me look into upgrading the ring." The relief on her face should have been my first clue that this was about more than just workplace pressure. This was about something deeper, something that made my chest tight with a feeling I couldn't quite name yet. I spent that weekend visiting 3 different jewelry stores, pricing 4-carat rings that ranged from $28,000 to $45,000, nearly wiping out the entire savings account I'd been building for our future house down payment. Each jeweler I spoke with seemed genuinely surprised when I explained what I was looking for. "Sir, the ring you originally purchased is absolutely beautiful," one elderly jeweler told me, examining the receipt I'd brought. "A 1.5-carat stone of this quality is nothing to be ashamed of. Most couples would be thrilled." But I wasn't shopping for most couples anymore. I was shopping for Victoria, and apparently Victoria needed something that would impress Marissa and Jade. While I was researching financing options and calculating how long it would take to rebuild our house fund, Victoria was busy on social media. She'd started posting Instagram stories about leveling up your ring game and sharing articles with titles like "High-Value Women Deserve High-Value Gifts" and "Training Your Man to Provide Properly." I watched her scroll through other women's engagement photos, screenshotting rings and sending them to me with messages like, "This is more what I had in mind," and "See how this one catches the light?" The woman who'd cried happy tears at Red Rocks was gone, replaced by someone calculating carat weights and comparing diamond clarity like she was shopping for a car. I started noticing other things I'd somehow missed before, or maybe I'd just been choosing not to see them. How Victoria always ordered the most expensive entree when I was paying for dinner, then barely ate half of it. How she'd started making comments about my Honda Civic being embarrassing compared to her coworkers' luxury cars. How she'd begun talking about quitting her real estate job after we got married because "you make enough for both of us, and I want to focus on being a good wife." When I came home Sunday evening with quotes from all 3 jewelry stores, Victoria was waiting on the couch with her laptop open, browsing engagement rings on various websites. "So what's the damage?" she asked, not looking up from a 4-carat emerald cut that cost more than I made in 6 months. "Between 28 and 45,000, I said, sitting down heavily beside her. "That would pretty much wipe out our house down payment fund." Victoria finally looked at me, and there was something in her expression that I'd never seen before. Not love, not even affection, but calculation. "Nathan, investments in your woman always pay off in the long run. Besides, we can always save up for a house later. The ring is forever." When I mentioned maybe taking out a loan, she smiled for the first time all weekend. "See? I knew you'd figure it out. That's what real men do, they make it work no matter what it takes." Instead of taking out a loan for a bigger ring, I made a series of decisions that week while Victoria believed I was finalizing the upgrade details. On Monday, I returned the original ring to the jeweler for a full refund of $8,200, telling him I'd had a change of heart about the whole engagement. He didn't ask questions, just processed the return with a sympathetic nod that suggested he'd seen this scenario before. Tuesday, I visited my lawyer and updated my will, removing Victoria as my beneficiary and changing my emergency contacts back to my parents in Boulder. I also added a codicil ensuring that my hospital retirement account would go to Denver Children's Hospital Foundation if anything happened to me. Seemed like a better investment than funding someone's jewelry collection. Wednesday and Thursday, I began quietly moving my most important possessions back to my parents' house while Victoria was at work showing houses to clients. Photo albums, my grandmother's antique desk, my collection of medical textbooks, my father's tools that he'd given me when I moved out, everything that actually mattered to me fit into my Honda Civic over 2 trips. When Victoria noticed the apartment looking different, I told her I was decluttering for our future move to a bigger place, which she enthusiastically supported because it meant I was thinking about upgrading our lifestyle. Friday morning, I researched local charities and selected the Denver Children's Hospital Foundation, where I worked, as the recipient of what would have been the ring upgrade money. I'd seen too many kids fighting cancer whose families couldn't afford basic necessities to justify spending $30,000 on a piece of jewelry designed to impress 2 women I'd never even liked. The donation would fund art therapy sessions for pediatric patients, something that would actually make a difference in the world instead of just making Victoria's coworkers jealous. I scheduled the donation for Friday afternoon, right after my shift ended, and requested that they send the acknowledgement letter to my parents' address. Victoria spent Friday getting her nails done and texting me photos of her ring-ready hands, along with reminders that we had dinner reservations at her favorite expensive restaurant where she planned to show off the upgrade to other diners. She came home that evening practically vibrating with excitement, immediately asking to see the new ring box. I was sitting calmly on our couch when she walked in, and I could see her scanning my hands for any sign of a jewelry store bag. "Well?" she asked, holding out her freshly manicured fingers. "Where is it? I've been thinking about this all day. I can't wait to post the upgrade video, it's going to get so many likes." I looked at her standing there, expectant and eager, and felt nothing but clarity about what I needed to say. "Victoria, you're absolutely right. You do deserve a 4-carat ring," I said, watching her face light up with triumphant satisfaction. "Just not from me." The confusion that crossed her features was almost comical, like someone had spoken to her in a foreign language. What do you mean, not from you? Nathan, stop playing games and show me the ring. I returned your original ring and donated $30,000 to the Denver Children's Hospital Foundation in your name. I figured if I was going to spend that much money, it should actually help people instead of just making your coworkers jealous. Victoria stared at me for a long moment, then started laughing like I'd told her the world's funniest joke. Very funny, Nathan. Seriously, where's my ring? I told everyone at work you were upgrading it, and I'm not showing up Monday empty-handed. I watched Victoria's laughter fade as she realized I wasn't joking, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally panic as the reality of what I was saying sank in. Nathan, this isn't funny anymore. Stop messing around and give me my ring. There is no ring, Victoria. I ended our engagement because I realized we have fundamentally different values about what matters in a relationship. The words came out calmer than I felt, but I'd had all week to prepare for this conversation. You can't be serious. Over a stupid ring? I was just stressed about work pressure, Nathan. I didn't really mean all those things I said. But she had meant them. I could see it in how quickly she'd embraced the idea of me taking out loans, how excited she'd gotten about posting upgrade videos, how naturally she'd started talking about quitting her job to become a kept woman. This isn't about the ring, Victoria. It's about you seeing me as a provider instead of a partner. It's about you being embarrassed by a gesture that represented months of saving and planning because your coworkers have bigger diamonds. Victoria's face went white, then red, then she started crying, the kind of tears that looked real but felt manipulative. Please don't do this to me, Nathan. I love you. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. I don't need a bigger ring, I promise. The original one was perfect. If the original ring was perfect, why did you spend a week making me feel like I wasn't good enough because I couldn't afford what Marissa and Jade's boyfriends bought them? Victoria opened her mouth, then closed it, unable to answer because we both knew the truth. She tried a different approach, grabbing my hands and looking into my eyes with what she probably thought was sincerity. Nathan, please. I've already told everyone at work that you were upgrading my ring. If you leave me now, I'll look like a complete liar. My reputation will be ruined. There was not, I'll be heartbroken, or, I can't live without you, but, my reputation will be ruined. Even in her desperation, it was still all about appearances. Your reputation is your problem, not mine, I said, gently pulling my hands away. You made choices about what to tell people, and now you get to deal with the consequences. That's when Victoria's mask completely slipped, and I saw the person she really was underneath all the charm and beauty. You're ruining my life, she screamed, loud enough that I worried about our neighbors hearing. I've invested 2 years in this relationship, and you're just throwing it away because I wanted something nice? What kind of man does that to someone he's supposed to love? The word, invested, told me everything I needed to know about how she'd viewed our time together. Not as building something meaningful, but as an investment that should pay dividends in the form of financial security and expensive gifts. She tried every manipulation tactic in the book over the next hour. First, she claimed she was pregnant, which I knew was impossible since she'd had a medical procedure just last month that she'd made me pay for. When I pointed that out, she switched to trying to seduce me, unbuttoning her shirt and telling me how much she'd missed being close to me. When that didn't work, she turned vicious. You're just a nurse, Nathan. You'll never find anyone as good as me. I was settling for you anyway. Marissa always said I could do better, and maybe she was right. You're boring, you have no ambition, and you'll probably die alone in some crappy apartment because you're too cheap to invest in the people who matter. I packed my remaining clothes while she alternated between sobbing and raging, throwing my belongings around and demanding that I at least give her the original ring back so she could return it herself. I already returned it, I told her, folding my scrubs into a duffel bag. The money's going toward the charity donation. I hate you, she spat, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I hope you're happy ruining both our lives over your stupid pride. I left my key on the kitchen counter and walked out to my Honda Civic, feeling lighter than I had in months despite Victoria's screaming following me into the hallway. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 6 a.m. with calls and texts from Victoria that escalated from apologetic to demanding to threatening as the hours passed. Nathan, I'm sorry, please call me back, became, you can't just ignore me like this, we need to talk, which eventually turned into, if you don't answer your phone, I'm coming to find you. I blocked her number after she left her 15th voicemail, but that only made her more desperate. Tuesday afternoon, I was checking on a 7-year-old leukemia patient when my supervisor knocked on the door with a concerned expression. Nathan, there's a situation at the front desk. Your ex-fiancée is here demanding to see you, and she's causing quite a scene. I could hear Victoria's voice echoing down the hallway as I walked toward the elevator, getting louder and more hysterical as security tried to calm her down. He's having a mental breakdown, she was shouting at anyone who would listen. He needs help. I'm his fiancée and I'm worried about him. By the time I reached the lobby, she was surrounded by 3 security guards while a handful of parents with sick children stared at the commotion. Victoria spotted me and immediately started crying, reaching out like she expected me to run to her rescue. Nathan, thank goodness. I've been so worried about you. You're not thinking clearly and everyone's concerned. Ma'am, you need to leave the premises immediately, the head security guard told her firmly. This is a children's hospital, and you're disrupting patient care. But he's my fiancé. He's not well. Victoria protested, even as they escorted her toward the exit. We're not engaged, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Please don't come back here. The incident required paperwork, explanations to my supervisor, and an uncomfortable conversation with human resources about maintaining professional boundaries even during personal crises. I felt humiliated that Victoria had brought our drama into my workplace, especially around sick children and worried families who had real problems to deal with. When Victoria couldn't reach me directly, she started contacting my family members, beginning with my sister Emma in Colorado Springs. Emma called me that evening, confused and concerned. Nathan, your ex-girlfriend just spent an hour on the phone with me claiming you had some kind of mental breakdown. She says you're not thinking clearly and need intervention because you canceled your engagement over work stress. I explained the real situation to Emma, who listened quietly before saying, "Oh, Nathan. I never liked her, but I didn't want to say anything because you seemed happy. She always struck me as someone who was more interested in what you could provide than who you actually were." Then Victoria called my parents' house, demanding to speak with my mother Linda. I was there having dinner when the call came, and Mom put it on speaker so I could hear Victoria's performance. "Mrs. Chen, I'm so worried about Nathan. He's been acting completely erratically, and I think the stress from his job is making him paranoid. He broke off our engagement over nothing, and now he won't talk to anyone. He needs help." My mother, who had always been polite but cool toward Victoria, surprised me with her directness. "Victoria, Nathan has been confiding in us for months about your behavior and your treatment of him like an ATM machine. We've been hoping he would realize he deserved better, and we're relieved he finally ended things." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. When Victoria finally spoke again, her voice was shaky and uncertain. "What do you mean he's been confiding in you? About what?" "About how you told him you weren't going to work after marriage because he makes enough for both of you. About how you constantly compare him to other men based on how much money they spend on their girlfriends. About how you made him feel like he wasn't good enough because he's just a nurse instead of some high-earning executive." I watched my mother deliver this information with surgical precision, each point hitting Victoria like a physical blow. Victoria's voice became smaller, more desperate as she realized her carefully constructed victim narrative was crumbling. "But I love him, Mrs. Chen. I made some mistakes, but I never meant to hurt him. Can't you just talk to him? Make him understand that I've learned my lesson?" My mother's response was swift and final. "Victoria, my son shared screenshots with us of your social media posts about training your man to provide properly and maximizing your boyfriend's earning potential. My younger son Jake works in social media marketing, and he showed us the private Facebook groups you're in where you discuss upgrading your lifestyle through strategic relationships." The color drained from my face as I realized my family had been protecting me from information I hadn't even known existed. Jake nodded grimly from across the dinner table, pulling out his phone to show me screenshots he'd been saving for months. Post after post of Victoria discussing her relationship with me in transactional terms, rating men based on their salary potential, sharing strategies for getting expensive gifts, and bragging about how she'd trained me to pay for her lifestyle without complaint. "There's more," my mother continued, her voice steady but firm. "Your own sister reached out to us months ago to warn us about your pattern of behavior. She told us about your previous 2 long-term boyfriends, how you dated a law student until he graduated and got a job, then left him for someone with more immediate earning potential. How you moved in with that finance guy and bled his savings account dry before moving on when he couldn't afford to maintain your lifestyle anymore. She was worried about Nathan and thought our family should know what kind of person you really were." Victoria's breathing became audible over the phone, quick and panicked as she realized how thoroughly exposed she was. "My sister shouldn't have. She doesn't understand. Those relationships were different." "Were they?" my mother asked. "Because according to her, you used almost identical tactics with all 3 men. Love bombing at the beginning, gradually increasing financial demands, emotional manipulation when they pushed back, and character assassination when they finally stood up to you. The only difference is that Nathan figured out your game before you could completely drain his savings account." I stared at the phone, feeling like I was hearing about a stranger rather than the woman I'd planned to marry. My family had been quietly gathering evidence of Victoria's true nature while I'd been blind to everything except her beauty and charm. "Nathan deserves someone who loves him for who he is, not what he can provide," my mother continued. "Someone who would be grateful for a beautiful engagement ring instead of demanding a bigger one to impress her coworkers. You showed your true colors when you called him embarrassing and demanded he take out loans to fund your jewelry collection." Victoria's last desperate attempt came out as pure rage. "Fine. You want to know the truth? Nathan is boring and cheap and has no ambition. I could have had any man I wanted, but I gave him a chance because he was stable. If his own family is going to turn against me, then maybe I should find someone who actually appreciates having a beautiful woman in his life." She hung up before any of us could respond, leaving us sitting in stunned silence around my parents' dinner table. Jake shook his head, scrolling through more of Victoria's social media activity. "Bro, she's losing it on Instagram right now. She just posted this long rant about your sudden mental health crisis and how she's the victim of your erratic behavior." But Victoria's public meltdown was about to backfire spectacularly when Jake decided he'd heard enough lies for one day. Jake responded to Victoria's Instagram post with a comment that included screenshots of her own messages demanding a 4-carat ring and calling me just a nurse who should know his place. Within hours, the post had been shared across Denver's social media circles, with people who knew us both commenting their own experiences with Victoria's entitled behavior. Former clients started sharing stories about her demanding expensive closing gifts and making inappropriate comments about their home values. Her real estate colleagues began distancing themselves when they realized the ring upgrade drama they'd been gossiping about was actually Victoria being dumped for gold-digging behavior, and by Friday her boss called her in for a meeting about maintaining professional boundaries after potential clients started asking about the social media drama. 6 months later, I was thriving in ways I never could have imagined while funding Victoria's lifestyle. I'd used the money that would have gone toward her ring upgrade to take advanced pediatric nursing certifications, which led to a promotion to charge nurse and a significant raise. My life felt purposeful again, focused on helping sick children instead of managing someone else's financial expectations. I'd started casually dating Riley, a 3rd-grade teacher I met through the hospital's volunteer reading program, who was impressed by my charitable donation and dedication to pediatric patients rather than my salary potential. Victoria, meanwhile, had struggled professionally and personally as word spread through Denver's social circles about her materialistic behavior. Her real estate sales dropped significantly once her reputation became known, and she'd been unable to find another serious relationship as men in the area began recognizing her name from the social media incident. She made one final attempt to reconcile by showing up at the hospital's annual charity gala where I was being honored for my donation to the Children's Foundation. I was standing with Riley and my parents when I spotted Victoria across the room, looking smaller and more desperate than I'd ever seen her, wearing a dress that was trying too hard to impress. She approached our group with fake confidence, interrupting my conversation with the hospital director about expanding the art therapy program. "Nathan, you look wonderful. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished," she said, as if we were old friends catching up instead of former fiancés who'd ended badly. "I always knew you had it in you to do great things." Riley stepped closer to me, not possessively but supportively, while my parents flanked my other side like a protective wall. "Thank you," I said simply, not giving Victoria any emotional energy to work with. "I hope you're doing well." Victoria's eyes darted between Riley and me, calculating and desperate. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately, about the mistakes I made. I've grown so much since then, and I think maybe we could—" "Victoria," I interrupted gently but firmly, "I'm exactly where I want to be, with people who value the same things I do. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it's not going to be with me." As security quietly approached to escort her out, having been alerted by staff who remembered her previous disruption, Victoria's facade finally cracked completely, revealing the broken, manipulative person underneath who had never learned that actions have permanent consequences that no amount of charm or desperation can undo.